You can never abrogate Article 370. That would be the alternative conclusion. We have to see why Parliament amended to Article 370 through 367 in the manner which it did. That's the whole challenge to 272. That article which made Constituent Assembly read as Legislative Assembly, was that constitutionally valid? Extinction of the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, referred to in the proviso to that article, in the relationship of Jammu and Kashmir for the Union as an integral part of the Union. Now, in contrast, the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir has the following preamble. This is in column 3 of the second schedule. That the reference to the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the state and to each such, has the Lordship got it, man?
Yes.
And to each such elected member shall be deemed to include respectively a reference to the members of the Constituent Assembly of the state.
Because there was no legislative assembly at all.
No legislative assembly. I'll show you. There was no, absolutely right. There was no legislative assembly at that time. But even when there was, so look, that's the whole point. The point is, it was deemed to be a legislative assembly for the purpose of our constitution. Why was this necessary? In 55, they were trying to get members of the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir.
All right, which is the next point? Which is the next article?
The next order. So by a deeming fiction, the Legislative Assembly members of the Constitution.
Here's the next one, because we are now 5 minutes short of the.
Yes. Then the next one is CO 39.
Yes.
Reference to the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states and to each such elected member shall be deemed to include respectively a reference to the members of the Constituent Assembly of the state and to each such members. Now, in CO 48, which is the next one, I'm running through it now, and this was in 1954. The date of CO 48 is 15th May 1954. Now, in this CO,
that CO you're saying?
So that's volume 3, PDF page 13.
At page 18. All right.
Now, in this CO, for the first time, previously it was done by COs, but for the first time, Article 367 was amended.
Right.
As applicable to J and K.
How is it relevant for your argument that Constituent Assembly means Legislative Assembly?
Because that's what the Union of India has done. They have amended 367.
Clause D.
Yes, yes. That's CO 272, which is under challenge. The same procedure was undertaken in 1954. For the first time this was done.
This was also pointed out to us by, I think, the learned solicitor.
In fact, that's in his list of days. It's the first exercise of 367 power.
But it was even, yes. But even earlier, they were synonymous. The Legislative Assembly and the Constituent Assembly. It's emanated from 1948.
This 14th of May 1954.
Yes, the 15th of May 1950.
Right. When there's no Legislative Assembly in Jammu and Kashmir.
No, it's not. But now an amendment is made that they will be the same. Even when there's no Legislative Assembly. And now we are not talking about for the purpose of a presidential election. This is now for every purpose.
All right, which is the next CO?
Then, my Lord, Your Lordship, I just see a provision in the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, 85(2), 85 subsection 2. This is at PDF page 56, volume 2.
PDF page.
PDF page 56. Until rules are made under subsection 1, the rules of procedure and standing orders in force immediately before the commencement of this constitution with respect to the Constituent Assembly, while discharging the functions of the Legislative Assembly, shall have effect in relation to each house of the legislature. There was only one. Subject to such modifications and adaptations as may be made therein by the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly or the Chairman of the Legislative Council, as the case may be. My Lord, substantively and in matters of procedure, the Constituent Assembly and the Legislative Assembly. In fact, what emanates from all this is that the Constitution.
But Mr. Jethmalani,
Yes.
the fact still remains that after the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir was framed
Yes.
on 26th of January 1957,
Yes.
Article 367 4D was again amended.
Yeah.
So delete clause D.
Yes. But my Lord, that
So that equivalence between the Constituent Assembly and the Legislative Assembly ceases the moment the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir is framed.
Lordship is absolutely right. Now I'm coming to that last one in 58. That's the last piece. But my Lord, what happened is.
That you will find at your volume 3, page 25.
Yes, Your Lordship is at page 25. And that's. The point is, all this shows that the Legislative Assembly, and why was this deleted? This was deleted because after the dissolution or the extinction of the Constituent Assembly, the constituent power in Jammu and Kashmir was now the Legislative Assembly. The power of amendment, in Article 368, it's in virtue of its being a constituent power that Parliament can amend. This is also recognized by at least 3 judgments in Indira Gandhi's, Nehru's case with Raj Narayan. I go back to the beginning of what I said, right at the outset, that the idea was that 373 being the final step, after which Article 370 altogether ceased to exist.
The only distinction is that a legislature which exercises the power of amendment is not a Constituent Assembly. It's exercising a constituent power.
I agree it is. But otherwise, the alternative interpretation would be that abrogation ceases to exist. You can never abrogate Article 370. That would be the alternative conclusion. We have to see why Parliament amended to Article 370 through 367 in the manner which it did. That's the whole challenge to 272. That is the whole challenge. And it did so because not only was it synonymous for they wore 2 hats. The Constituent Assembly wore 2 hats. The same people, the 75 people who constituted the Constituent Assembly in 1951 when it was convened, were the same people who were also members of the Legislative Assembly.
Argument of the learned solicitor is that independent of the amendment of Article 367,
yes,
370(3) and the exercise of that power still stands.
Of course it stands.
And it still survives.
Because so, I'll tell your Lordship why.
Have to go as far as, according to him, he has not pitched it. Though he said, look, 367 has also been used in the past.
Yes.
To the 3 times it was used.
Yes.
But he said, independent of 367,
it can still be done. Look, which is why I come to my next point. And that's one of the 367. No, they became the successors, A. They were certainly the successors. If there was any constituent power which could replace the Constituent Assembly in the proviso, it was certainly only the Legislative Assembly. Now, your Lordship is right, 367 could not be the source for, that did not necessarily have to be the source for that replacement between the Constituent Assembly and the Legislative Assembly. Did not have to be a source. But it was implicit in any event. All 367 did, or the amendment to 367 did, by CO 272, was to recognize an implicit position. It was not only synonymous for a substantial period of time, but it was a successor. And CO 272 did not make a substantive change. It made a change it was a clarificatory change, which was already inherent, which was already implicit in Article 373 proviso.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Jethmalani, now?
So now the Damnu's case applies. Please, one look at Damnu to consolidate this argument.
Damnu we have seen. We'll have a look at it.
Just some paragraphs with special emphasis.
Which are the paragraphs? Just give us.
Yes, I'll give a Lordship's the paragraph. Paragraph 25. Oh, no, I put it in my list. Lordship, just gives me a minute. Yes. My Lord, the factual situation, which, my Lord, makes the question of law decided clearer, is in paragraph 6, 1, 7, and 8.
Of Damnu.
Of Damnu. That's the factual situation. But if your Lordships recall, it was that change. It was that change of Sadr Riyasat to the governor of Jammu and Kashmir. And my Lord, the findings are at 19, 22, actually 19 to 28. 19 to 28. And though the 367 was upheld by that Constitution bench, the amendment to 367 was upheld by the Constitution bench on the ground that it was merely a clarificatory. It was not an amendment of substance. So also here, I bring my submission within the four corners of Damnu.
All right.
That this was inherent.
Anything else, Mr. Jethmalani?
No,
because now the second point you have covered is.
And as my learned friend pointed out, that Damnu also refers to it. Damnu says it's sought in aid of its judgment, Section 18 of the General Clauses Act.
Yes.
So, my Lord, General Clauses Act applies because it's my contention that the Constituent Assembly is the successor. The Legislative Assembly is the successor, and Section 18 of the General Clauses Act will squarely apply, as it does. So the powers vested in the original authority will devolve